Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of TechChat with Ife. And today we have not not so very unfamiliar face in the world of tech. Basically, I can use the word because it's gone beyond the scope of Nigeria, Africa at large. Yeah, so not so uncommon person to our face. It's a privilege to have him here. We have Ace Kid. I mean, I will always use that name because that name is the name I know way back, right? So that name is the name I'm used to, but it's maybe no longer a kid anyways. So I'll say Adewale Abati and someone else I've known way back. Say I think our first probably meet up would have been 2016, 2015, thereabouts, somewhere where we used to go between Yaba and everywhere in Lagos. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it's a privilege to have you on the show and thank you for honoring the call as well. So I'll let you introduce yourself so that people can meet you and then know what you do.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Adewale Abati. I'm based in Amsterdam. I'm a staff developer advocate at Block, currently working on stuff around agentic AI and how engineers use it. A lot of people call me Ace, like you mentioned, Ace kid as well, even though the KYD there doesn't mean kid, but most people misinterpret it for kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a group name, but I mean, we're young anyway, so you might as well call it kid. But most people call me Ace, which kind of like answers all the questions. I live in Amsterdam. I think I mentioned that already. I've been here for about 3 years and just trying to, having conversations like this where we talk about how AI and, of course, most specifically, to be honest, how technology is advancing. Right now, it's just emphasis on AI. And so I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great, great. Thank you so much. Right, so we'll just get into it. Of course, the topic today is agentic AI, game changer for engineers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's game changer for almost everybody, but let's
Everybody.
speak. Yeah, let's just bring it. Let's narrow it down to our own self, right? So, for context, right? How would you define agentic AI? What exactly is agentic AI? I know there's AI, right? What is agentic AI?
Yeah, so that's a very good way to actually structure that question because first of all, we know there is AI, and with AI, you can think about even as far back as AI itself has been in existence for as long as I can remember, maybe the 80s or thereabout. But
Right.
we've had different versions of it, in both in the research or technical field that was outside of everyday user experiences. But at the same time, we also had like glimpses into stuff like Siri, Google Assistant, and all
Mm-hmm.
those things. I just started to put in some machine learning and all of those things. AI as a concept itself kind of maybe exploded into the general market, if I can use that term, with ChatGPT, like a very
Yeah.
nice user interface. And the people are like, oh, I can actually do this with chat. So agentic AI is kind of like an evolution of that, where you're not just texting back and forth with an AI, it can actually go to something for you. So one of the keywords there is autonomous. So it's able to make decisions, go either in a loop or taking some of the parameters you've put in to actually act on what the LLM is recommending. So one of the key concepts is, or a way to describe the flow would be like you have an agent. The agent calls an LLM. The LLM does the processing. It comes back with an action. The agent, instead of just giving you back the response like a normal chat experience would give you, it's also able to take that response. If it needs to do something, it can go do that thing, come back, call the LLM again, and just go in that kind of loop till it gets to a point maybe when it needs your intervention, which is why it's called autonomous. And that is kind of like the description of agentic AI.
Right.
Today we've got to a point where agents are even able to spin up more agents, and it's just a. I was about to use a very crazy word, but it's a cluster of very interesting things to happen.
It's like so many big grammars, but I think these days we've really brought it to starting with the language model, the LLMs and stuff like that. And I'm thinking because I think you mentioned one thing very key at the beginning of
Yeah,
your presentation. You said we were already sort of used to this thing, right? But it came into more light with something like ChatGPT now being available for everybody. So if we were to dwell on that, because you're saying, oh, maybe far back as 80s, we've had some of these AI interventions, like Google,
yeah.
Siri, Assistant, and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, if we were already used to these things, what then changed between, I'll use 2023 or 2022, I think that's when everything just went wild, right? What changed between then and 2022? Let's use that year. What changed? What did they discover?
Yeah, so I won't necessarily say we're used to it before. What I meant was more like there were already existing applications of it. So
Right.
AI was invented with ChatGPT. For example, I think the concept of AI was basically having the computer learn by itself and then do
Mhm.
other things and then make decisions. So you could start from like a complex, I don't want to say complex if statement, but basically back in those days, I mean, as far back as say maybe 2017 or 16 or something like that, there was TensorFlow, which is like heavily machine learning.
Yeah.
That was an evolution of like AI in quotes, where the machine learning aspect was what was put in front of us. Neural networks. You go to school. I studied computer science, like being taught neural networks. So that was in that form, like artificial intelligence. And then even as we were building applications in that case, we had like expert systems, which was like doing for diagnosis, all of those things, trying to get as many controls as possible and train models. So training got better, inference got better, and all of those things. Because I won't say I'm a machine learning engineer for me to go
Yeah.
into in-depth explanations, but those things got better to the point where they started to make better decisions. And
Mm.
for ChatGPT, for example, the inference was extremely high. It wasn't, I won't say it was particularly intelligent because the models have gotten way better since then. They've gotten so good that if you compare them to probably what we're getting back then, you'd be like, what the hell is this? But even in that time, I think what was revolutionary about ChatGPT was the fact that they were able to take things that were open to, say, a small set of people, like maybe machine learning engineers specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can make a prompt, can make a request, can actually get a response back. And presenting in that user friendly experience made it like, okay, now it's almost a general market kind of thing.
Right.
And then it was still limited because now you go to ChatGPT, you ask the questions, you have to go to the task, or you have to like, sometimes it was also wrong. Hallucinations were like,
Destinations.
there's still hallucinations today because it's still a probability kind of thing. So we've not gotten to AGI like they say it. So, but I think the key part of it is that there's been an evolution over these years. And I read this book that I think is, what's it called? I have it close by Wise Animals, How We Use Technology. And it basically just covers how it might take you 1,000 years to get from point A and to point B for a technology. But the evolution of that technology is not going to take another 1,000 years. It could take 200, and the next one takes 10, the next one takes 1 year. And I think that's what is happening with us with AI.
Oh,
What has changed between 2016 to 2022, and what has changed from 2020 to 2025, and what has changed between 2025 to today?
I mean, January to date, I know we were sort of on socials, and almost every day you're getting a notification from Google.
Exactly.
Right?
So
You're getting this and saying, "Oh, we've done this, we've done that," and like it's wild.
100%. So that's the evolution that we're experiencing with AI right now. I don't know if there's going to be a plateau at some point, but right
Mm.
now it's really exciting. With just even with the same technology, what people are able to build with it is
Right.
could also be a game changer.
Right. So now, thank you for using that last word, game changer. But then, engineer, I mean, I've had sessions earlier with people who are like top managers or top directors from PwC, and he was talking about AI taking people's job and AI not taking people's job, people learning, people not learning.
Yeah.
But we have sort of turned it around and said, okay, it's a game changer. But how do you give confidence to someone who is trying to maybe get into the university or even already like an engineer right now and say, you know what, you can still go ahead and take those certification courses because it will be relevant.
Yeah. So right from the dawn of time, there's been inventions that have positioned themselves like they're going to take people's jobs in
Right.
one form or the other. Just because the technology is so good, people first reaction is, why would I need somebody for this?
Mm.
But the thing about those tools is that they either make a particular aspect of that job insanely easy or good, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not everything that that job entails.
Mm.
So mostly what it does is it evolves the job, which I think is also going to happen to pretty much. I was gonna say developers, but even more than developers today, because now we have Claude in Excel.
Copilot is everywhere.
Exactly. So it's gonna even be more than engineers. But the cool thing is that at least unless we get to a point where AGI is just completely achieved, which I think we're still far from, the technology we have today, or if maybe in the next few years, is gonna change the job. It's gonna take the jobs in the sense that
Mm. Those
the people that get to know how
creative.
to use these tools, yes, you're not going to have the same job. You just describe it. Your job is not just going to be a software engineer that all you have to do is write code. Your
Right.
job is going to change. So in that concept, you can say, or in that context, you can say, oh, that's taking my job, or it has eradicated this job title. But what is important is that you will still have a job. It's just going to evolve.
Right.
We have people today, they might be on the extreme end of things that are running multiple agents at the same time, doing multiple jobs, and they basically become product managers. but their understanding of the core software engineering principles allows them to be great product managers in that case because they're reviewing the actions, setting the guidelines for the AI tool, the agents to use, and then they're shipping software. But at the same time, we are saying, oh, this thing is making us build, but how many people are building stuff still with all of this technology, which is also a normal thing because even if someone feels like I have all the ideas in the world and it picks up Cloud Code and it's starting like, this thing is not really working the way I want it to do. I'm not doing it again.
Drop it again.
Like there's still those challenges as humans and they're still going to need specialization. And
Mhm.
that's all. It's just that the specialization demand is going to evolve over the next few months. I don't know if I should say years at this point, but months.
Yeah, I can understand that, right? Where you almost see new things every day, and it's even a bit difficult for some of us to really stay in the loop of what exactly is changing. In
Yeah,
Codex or something, I was just saying Codex about some few days ago. I'm like, what's Codex again? Where are we going? I don't even know.
yeah,
It's one thing like that. But again, I know you've mentioned about like there's a potential of maybe not even potential, like there's a certainty of job description or like what we do in our jobs will probably be changing, and it's
hmm,
more like it is people who probably do not evolve with it that then ask or stands at risk. Now, but
yeah.
for someone in early careers, because I think I had the opportunity to speak with somebody who called me and said, I want my child to do anything computing, and I'm thinking, what should he be doing? Computer science, software engineering, mechatronics, and I mean, they were just giving all these options. And then the man kept on saying, "I want cybersecurity." I said, "There's nothing like cybersecurity as a course, like for somebody who is starting. Do you get like?" You are just going into university. There's no university basic course that actually has that where they are reside right now. And I'm thinking, when you want to make decisions for people like this, especially in this world, where everybody wants to ensure that their child is in the line of what this agentic, or
Yeah.
where they will just fit into any system wherever they find themselves in the world. What would you be advising such a person in terms of like how this is going to, or how is this going to affect the whole setup of whatever you set yourself to do, the job or career you want to choose? This is going to change it.
That's a very good question. I don't know if I have the entire answer to that. For example, my mom decided I had to, this was what, seven, eight? I can't remember. My mom decided that I have to somehow be a computer literate person
Oh,
because she feels
nice.
like that was the future. I don't know if my mom had any foresight in that regard because she doesn't know anything about computers. But it's just basically, the reason I'm pointing that out is that it's basically seeing some of the things that starts to happen around you and using that to evolve, even though you don't know what the future looks like.
Mhm.
Because I don't think any of us has any idea what it's actually going to look like yet. Um, so what I would say is like fundamentally is learning about the foundational things that kind of like shape the industry you're trying to get into, regardless. So whether you're going to medicine or you're going into engineering, software engineering itself, there's still need for you to learn the foundations for it. There's still need to learn the fundamentals. And you can use AI to assist you in learning this thing. It's not that it's just that you're intentionally knowing that you want to acquire this knowledge for yourself so that even if you're going to be using automated tools in the future, you know what is going on, you know what is happening. You cannot expect a random person, let's say a product manager, just because they have like access to AI tools to fully manage a DevOps configuration or like clusters left and right. Now the AI tool they might send it on another hand, but there's just some complication that it just outside of their bandwidth, right? And they have to make decisions. Otherwise, they just leave everything to AI and something might happen that is not exactly what they want. So at the end of the day, especially for early career, is understanding that okay, this is the field I want to go into. What do I need to know in this field? The field might evolve, but at this point, you are in a point where the field is just starting to evolve. So you still need to get on the track, if that makes sense. Like you still need to get on the track. I need to get the foundations, fundamentals, and then go with the flow. But if you keep waiting to see where it's going, you cannot time the market, like they say. You'll be left behind. You see that things have completely changed, and now you have to learn something new. You just have to start and get into it. And then if you're just early career, like when I say early career, like maybe even far as a student, still far behind, and you don't even know what industry you're going into for now. Just making sure that you understand the things that where the world is going. You're aware of some of the tools,
Mhm.
you're keeping your ear to the ground. And for especially for let's think about kids now. Some kids are learning how to use Scratch. It's not because Scratch is the technology they will use when they grow up as software engineers,
Just
but
building.
it trains the mind, it trains logic, it trains things that they might be intangible, but they come back to play a role in the eventual industry that they might get into.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's very brilliant. I think we've gone from even the students to the like little ones. right now. And yeah, so that brings us somewhere and say, okay, now people in the system. You've said, oh, some people these days, no matter how many ideas you have, there's still that limitations that you hit a rock somewhere or you see a blocker somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, this thing is not going to do it. Then how should we be using it? Because I mean, we ourselves we see social media. We see, I've seen somebody who said, oh, somebody charged me 20,000 for some software, and so just one night I built the same software I paid 20,000 for with $200 to maybe Codex or OPEX or something, and I'm like, sorry, Opus, and I'm like, is that even
So
possible? Let's be honest.
so
Is that possible?
why that might be possible? Because first of all, I don't know what the rate is that they're using to charge the person 20K, or what the complexity is in that sense. But there are things that we're overlooking in this context, which is first of all, the person that goes to use $200 for a 20,000 project is the time they're investing in it, their experience that they have to make some decisions, if they do have those experiences, and also the amount they spend in like research, all of those other things outside of development. There's also like still business needs because even if you have the application, you need to do stuff around it to make it work properly. And the reason I'm saying this is that I don't think there's any product that you can build for or be charged $10,000 to build that you can one shot because there's a complex system that needs to be set up even outside of code. You probably need to set up infrastructure, you need to deploy it, you need to do all of those things. So I don't know what the context is to,
Yeah, I
but it's
get.
not a one to one. It's not a one to one replacement where instead of paying someone 20K to just build this application, just give $20 to an AI to build it for you. Because then you need to ask yourself like the edge cases, the security vulnerability, and if you have those experiences already, then that's an advantage that you're not accounting for
Mhm.
in the $200 that you're pointing out because you're not accounting for your experience, you're not accounting for your time, you're not accounting for you reading the plan and making sure that the edge cases are covered for. Because it's now this is you paying yourself that amount of money, just that
Right.
it's not in the same exchange rate, if that makes sense.
Mm,
For
absolutely.
example, yeah, if I'm building an app right now, I know things. One thing I also do, yeah, that most people don't do is that sometimes there are two types of projects I build. Some when I have an exact vision of what I want to build. Sometimes it's just an idea and I just want to like go with the flow to that point. But if I'm dumping my idea and like let's say my AI agent like goes, I can tell the agent like ask clarifying questions. And as I ask clarifying questions that okay, I've done this idea on you, but there could be assumptions that you need to make. So should I use this font or should I use this font? Do you want to configure or do you need a dashboard or do you just want an email notice? That is kind of small decisions that then by telling the agent to ask you clarifying questions, you just eliminate the probability for hallucination at the same time or making assumptions. Some of these things are basically translate back into you building a structured application
Mhm. I
that
think
works well.
I think you've also pointed out one thing. I think experience does come with some of these things as well because I mean, I for one as well. If I'm going to do something with whatever agent I'm using, and sometimes I'm specific and say, oh, you know what, I want you to use Mongo.
Yeah.
I want you to use this. I want you to use that. Which for a layman or for someone who doesn't even have experience in that field, there's no way you're guessing that or they know where that's going to come from. Just give me a backend or just give me a DB, and it just picks anything. You don't know whether it is relational. You don't know whether it's documents, you just know that that's giving you a DB, and of course, that in turn affects the performance of your system if you ever completely build one. So now, if you look at that for an engineer now who has those experiences, if I'm to ask you now, because I know you use it, I use it, everyone almost uses it, but again, is there a risk of I'm giving my knowledge out to this thing? I'm just coming to what we used to think back in the days. I'm giving my knowledge out to this thing means that I'm actually enriching the model, right? Because as I'm saying it, me and you know that that model is learning that, oh, this is actually how this should be working because that's coming from me. And then, of course, however they try to filter their source of truth, right? At the end, if I've told it this is the best practice for this, somebody else told it this is the best practice for this, that builds a model that one day actually can take us off the job.
So that is where we are. That's a wrong assumption, which is one of the things where we are wrong at.
Okay.
Is that it's also one of the challenges for AGI because the models are not learning.
Oh,
And what I mean by that is that they're not learning from you or I, like the way we are using it. They've been trained and they've been locked. So they have a set knowledge base, if that makes sense. Unless there's a new one that's coming out that has changed the game
but
that
I
I'm
think
not
their
aware of.
terms does state otherwise. Their term says that even humans review these things.
Yeah. So what they do is that is part of the training. So they get trained up to a point and they consume data that's already out there to a point and then they get logged or shipped out, whatever the case is. Now, what is making it seem for you that you tell it something and it's getting better at it is that it's storing memory or knowledge about you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in your context. But if you take that that raw model without your context or with your knowledge or things you've told it to remember, or things you've told it to always do, it's going to act the same way, at least to a certain degree, which is one of the reasons why they said the AI agents are non-deterministic because you can make the same request and get different outputs at different
Yeah.
times. But which is why when people tell you to make an agent, for example, what they are telling you to do is like create a markdown file because you're having a set of rules, a model to go through a set of instructions and then try to replicate as much as possible the same output every single time. But the model itself is not learning back from what you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is tied within your context and the memory that it is fed. So, for example, if me and you are using the same model and you're teaching it one way, it doesn't touch any way I'm teaching it,
Right.
unless we intertwine the markdown files or the memory files or the knowledge graph that we've kind
Brilliant.
of like developed for ourselves in there. And that is one of the challenges that people describe about AGI because for AGI to actually work, it means outside of things that it has learned, as we're talking to it, is learning from it as well. It's evolving the source in
Mm-hmm.
a way, and it just keeps going. OpenClaw, for example, that we could consider close to the say, it's still just an agent that is able to make more agents of its own. So if you give it an instruction, it can create an agent, and it feels like it's learning, but just because it has created an agent that
Doesn't mean that.
now handles that part, and it just kind of like keeps going and growing, and you have a network of stuff like that. Unfortunately or fortunately, as the case may be, depending on your perspective, we've not gotten a model that is just outrightly at its source learning back from what you're doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a set inference and it's making that and then using your resource files, context, memory to then provide more fine-tuned responses for you.
So now let's come to ethics now, right? So yeah, it's not learning from you or like it's just using your context and your memory and what and that's what it is, which I believe is correct. So now let's come to best practice, ethics, and stuff like that. You have some of us tied to organizations. Some people are freelance. You can do anything, right? And then some of us are tied to organizations, and then you see ourselves as engineers, developers, whatever you do, and you're thinking, what is the limit to which I can use this thing? Because best practice is very important. You know why I'm saying that? It's because of the risk of security, the risk of your data, the risk of some of these things.
I mean, I saw a screenshot like maybe an hour ago or less where the founder of OpenClaw said he regretted creating OpenClaw.
Oh, really?
And I mean, it didn't just say like, oh, I regret. Oh, you saw a use case, and it's like, oh, when I see things like this, it makes me regret creating OpenClaw because like most technologies, even like a gun or whatever the case is,
Mm.
once you create this thing, you can't control how people use it anymore. I
The
think it's also one of the
bad,
stories behind
people use it
Oppenheimer.
too.
Yes. So, for example, you has created this thing that can advance itself in some way, that can build agents. And people are using to build some high level spam bots. I'm using
Oops.
to do all of these things. I was like, come on, like this is. Do you get me? You can't control it.
I
So,
understand.
but what sets the parameters are either the environment that you're using it at. For example, if you go to ChatGPT today and try to create, let's say, AI porn, for example, it's not going to let you. But
Yeah.
there are also some models in some other places that don't have any restriction, and people are creating that kind of content somewhere. I mean, we had this long period of time that people were stripping down people, men and women alike, into their bikinis on Twitter.
Hmm.
That is something that could have been configured not for Grok not to do, but it wasn't configured not to do. So like the parameters, the ethics, unfortunately falls around the organization that is managing any of the models. And if you download the model by yourself, you fine tune it, no one is even having insight to know what you're doing with that model locally, to be honest, because it's code based. So I would say the same ethics that's always applied to the internet or to data privacy or to security applies to anything that we're doing with these generations. But the only problem is that there's just like as AI, there's an advancement to how much damage it can do. So it's more about
So what sort of guides you? Like if you're about to do something, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it this way.
so
It-
one I think one of the most great area part that I still also think about if I'm being entirely transparent is also like generating uh let's say AI music or creative stuff with AI stuff and with AI tools rather. And you have to think like there are conversations around these things where are you taking money from the creatives? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? So For me, it's like if I don't know what the complete answer is if I'm being honest, but I often try to stay away from like just generating creative AI stuff, like things that maybe I would have paid somebody for sometimes.
Mm.
Uh, but it doesn't mean I'm 100% abstinent, if I'm being honest, because there are some things that are small. I have a video editor, for example. I use Filmora to edit my videos, and the subscription I'm on comes to like 2,000 AI credits, which means I am able to create creative AI tools for me, like background music and stuff like that. So I still use that once in a while. But sometimes when it gets too real, I'm like, damn, this is okay. No, I don't want to use this music because it's AI generated, but it almost feels like it's human generated. And there's nothing stopping me from using it except some kind of like conversations I've had. Um, so I think there's still a lot of like individual exploration and organizations or bodies trying to put some relegation in there. I don't think you have any strong ones yet. So ethics still kind of falls individually to you, your environment, your context. I'm sure if you're abusing something, you know you're abusing it,
Yeah.
unless you have no conscience. And if you don't have any conscience, then nothing can stop you in that way. But it's a very great area, just in some way, in terms of like the ethics and things that we can do with these AI tools.
So do you think that with ethics or like data security itself now, do you think that there comes a level where some of these things are reviewed and maybe for future for I mean an example is just I think whether it was the US defense or something and there was maybe some documents passed through and I asked myself that question. Number one, how did that data get off his computer somewhere else that they knew that he had done that with his computer? And I'm thinking, I get people sort of reviewing some of these things. Some things are being flagged when you do it. Do you get what I'm saying? Or maybe specific people, or maybe if maybe you work in an organization, there are specific restrictions to some of the queries you make. You know, these days, if you work in an organization, say Gemini, for instance, the organization has free Gemini, everybody puts it in. But I've read the documentation to the extent that I know that your organization admin can actually manage all your requests or all your interactions and stuff like that. I'm like, are these things being flagged? And should engineers now be aware of that? Because the reason why I'm saying that is because it's ending or it's tending towards someplace, which is if you become so dependent. I know these days they say, oh, don't, everybody uses AI. But if you become so dependent on some of these agents, and for instance, in quotes, your admin has access to maybe you have like an organization account with Gemini, ChatGPT, and you have access to some of these things, and they say, "Ah, this our developer is not building anything again. It's just doing agents for us." And do you think to an extent it then feels like, oh, okay, if these are just his questions or his interactions with you, why do we then need to be paying him when we can just pay ChatGPT? Do you get my point? Because that, I mean, when I saw that news, I really felt I was curious about it. That how did that? Because he must have done it on his computer, whether office, whether anywhere. How did that information go out of the agent to somewhere where they realize that, oh, this is a document for maybe confidential document, whatever it is, and like what's the risk behind that?
I think those are like different conversations between ethics and data security
Hmm.
in the sense that ethics can either be individual or organizational in this case. But at the same time, when it comes to data security, the company admin, for example, being able to have access to that, to any of those interactions could also be data security because you need to be sure that people are not exposing company secrets or feeding the wrong things to the LLM because you're still responsible for your organization. You're asking for data security now. From the ethics side, should admins be able to have access to the things that, what's it called, their employees are asking of this agent? So, but if you're working in a company environment, you should know that any of those documents or, or resources, let me put it that way, company resources are accessible to a company that has set up an infrastructure for it because it
Mm-hmm.
is company resources. So unless you're doing something unethical, which
Mm-hmm.
is where the question becomes like Ouroboros or something like a paradox, you probably shouldn't be using company resources for that, right? But if you're using company resources for that and you're doing something that bridges or breaches policy of the company, then I don't know if it's is ethically wrong to investigate or I mean investigate perhaps, but to like judge the company for having access to that information.
No,
So, for
no,
example,
my
today,
own worry, my own worry, to be fair, sorry to interject,
yeah,
my own worry is not even about, even whether it's ethical right now, say, okay, you're doing the right thing, you're trying to build a solution for your company, right?
yeah.
But now you're using the agents every day.
So what you're saying is, should you, if you become too good at using agents, could that cost you your job?
Yeah, could you?
That is a funny question. I don't know anyone that has happened to at the moment, but I mean, I would say automation probably is coming for a lot of things like that. If your job is solely automation, once it's automated, it could be what you did before. But then there's also maintenance in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be lying if I say I have an absolute answer for that. I don't think I do, but I think value that you're creating there is also showing that you can continue to create stuff. But I'll be lying if I say that does not put your job at risk in maybe some organizations, possibly because they're like, why do I need you? I don't know if we're there yet. Um, and I think I've also heard maybe a lot of people that got laid off in large sizes just because they're no longer needed for their job. And that happened even before AI, if we're being honest, where, excuse me, that company priorities shift or they're downsizing or whatever reason. The ethics of it could be arguable, but a business is a business at the end of the day.
Right, correct. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, now I know you've slightly touched on this earlier. So let's we know that this year has been year of shipping almost every day,
Mhm.
right? So if we look 3 years, 2 years from now, just your thoughts, your opinion, completely your thoughts. What do you think? What do you think it would be?
I don't know what the end of this year will look like. But I think an estimate I would make is a lot of us would probably, I mean, we're still early. That's one absolute thing. We're still early. I think we would have more everyday users than we currently even have right now that are already starting to use the applications as well that are AI powered. I think eventually we'll get to a point where AI becomes the way the internet is, where it's just in everything by default. Let's say in 3 to 5 years, where you're using your phone is powered by some level of, like, for example, iPhone's Apple Intelligence. You're using an app on your for your company. It could be in the cloud, it could be a desktop application, and a lot of things is just clicking, and there's some automation powering it in the background. What that will look like for day to day of for jobs, economy, I have no idea.
Hmm.
I think I just observing to see what that would look like. But like I said, the jobs will definitely evolve. I don't think this technology we have at the moment is advanced enough for it to run economies entirely on its own. Um, there would always be a human in the loop to an extent. The number of humans, however, it's a different question. But yeah, I don't know what it's gonna look like if I'm being honest.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that as well. Then there's one thing that now comes to my mind, because the reason why I'm saying, oh, 5 years, 3 years from now is because I know one problem we have, or we probably, oh, I see it as a problem. Maybe it's not a problem for everyone. Is that I realize that because of these solutions, or because of these agents available to everyone, it almost looks like everybody's building something. Now, as software is supposed to be a game changer for us, and now it now looks like everyone is building something. Should that be the way to go in terms of, oh, everybody can now build things, or should there be some level of, maybe I should even take a break to see that, do I really need to build these things?
Um, I'm trying to figure out the best analogy to use to answer that because how will I put this? We've always talked about. I remember I was a Microsoft student partner, and we used to have this shirt where we were telling everybody to learn how to code.
Hmm.
Not because everybody needs to become a software engineer, but because it could be a basic life skill.
Right.
And I think that's where we're going, where everyone is able to do it does not mean everybody will do it. In the sense that, for example, I give an example earlier where I was saying you start building, then it's not looking exactly how you want to, you just dump it. Like, let me go ask someone that can actually use it. There will be expert professionals in using this AI to bring your imagination to life exactly how you want it, better than
Mhm.
you. Everybody can paint today. We have sip and paint shops every left and right. Everybody's a painter.
Right.
Doesn't mean everybody can commission paintings or build something secure enough for them. So sometimes, even if you can build small solutions for yourself, there will always be demand for it. It's just that I think, especially with the emergence of these AI tools, you just have more flexibility to make things of your own and see bring things to life, either prototypes or just small use
Mhm.
cases and stuff like that. it's not going to entirely just eliminate the need for that entire line of industry.
Right. So yeah. Then next is, how do you then think people should be should we, or maybe companies, maybe organizations, maybe startups, how then do you think they should be reshaping their team in this? Because if everyone, I've seen posts where somebody said, "Oh, okay, with AI now, somebody like a backend engineer who has maybe a bit of knowledge of front end, which used to be the problem before. Oh, I can just write APIs and connect it with my GBs and then pass it on to the front end person." How do you think with agentic AI now? How do you think that's now going to be shaping teams? Because people can, or a startup person can feel like, front end now, don't worry, just use ChatGPT and build the back end. Back end, just use ChatGPT and build the front end. Like, how do you think teams should now be shaped? How do you think we should just employ agentic AI as
So, quick question to that. It's like saying, why didn't teams hire only full stack developers?
hmm,
Because you see need specialization,
yeah,
right? So, what these things have made easy is you can go from 0 to 50% quickly. So, a
hmm,
backend engineer is able to use AI tools to generate the front end for their backend application. Doesn't mean it's the best software out there. For even if the backend might be the best thing. But to be honest, we can get AI to the point where it could actually generate something that is perfect. I'm never gonna lie. That it looks at the backend, looks at the API endpoints that's available, it looks at your PLD, and it builds it to a T. That sounds very possible in my head.
mhm,
But there are trade-offs. There are things that you start to think about. There are scaling. There are those decisions that you can use an AI tool to power it, but that also comes in at that time of decision making. You need an expert in quotes to make those decisions for you. So it's also why I'm saying that the jobs will change, jobs will evolve, because the same way you describe it, an AI tool could probably set up the backend as well. So do you say you're not eyeing the backend, you're not eyeing the front end, you're just going to be the one to build the company by yourself? You can
hmm,
do that to bootstrap and start building something. I've seen so many one-person products in the last couple of weeks or months. But if you want to scale to a team where one person is doing one thing, one person like you just want to move fast, you can have 100 agents, but someone has to oversee them.
yeah,
Someone has to come. That's what you want. Comes back to the human in the loop thing. So there might be a reduction in general. Like maybe before you hire somebody, you need to maybe get to a point in your product. It's just that the jobs themselves are evolving. So
hmm,
we'll probably not think about it as just a back-end engineer or a front-end engineer. It's going to be some kind of specialization that takes into consideration how good these tools are. I mean, I remember the days of what's it called, Dreamweaver or something as an application where you just point and click,
some publisher.
all of those things. Doesn't mean everybody, because that tool exists, everybody can just start to do that. There's some level of expertise that scales from A to
Yeah,
Z. And then it becomes, for example, it becomes how well can you use AI tool to generate this or to do this job? And then that
hmm,
becomes your specialization ladder.
awesome, awesome. I mean, that was insightful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for some of these like eye-opening responses and answers. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the job is evolving, or the whole idea of us being engineers or developers would evolve, and it needs everyone to just ensure that you stay in the loop and learn whilst trying to also stay in line with what we're doing. Um, Last question, if you want me to ask, is now we have a few people say, I want to be this, I want to be that. Well, I don't know. Maybe it will take people of our generation to probably know you, right? So, like, I don't know how those schools are right now, but there are people who come and say, "Oh, I want to learn this, I want to do this, I want to do this." Are you open? Open, sorry. Are you open to mentoring people? Everyone's busy. I know everyone is this. If we say, "Oh, okay," we find someone, say someone say, I want to become a front end engineer. Yeah, I know that you started as a front end engineer, and I know that well, this might not be published anyways. I know that we had that first competition that asked, no, not asked your front stack,
Oh, front stack.
the one by what's her name, during
Front stack.
yeah, that time that was 2017, I think.
Yeah, about. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know you started front end there and stuff like that. So
I actually started with okay. Yeah, let's go. There's so many things that never made to the light that I started with.
a lot of us doing this was like that's what
Yeah.
like the one I know that, oh yeah, I definitely knew you then. And then of course the Angular with Kristen and stuff like that. So I was there, I saw you guys. So if someone comes down and say, "Oh, I want to learn this," is it possible to be mentored by this person? Is that a possibility? Is that something you're looking at? Or you probably run a mentoring, because we've had people who also say, "Oh, I run a mentoring session myself," and if anyone is interested, just share their contact, but it's fine.
Yeah, so I actually just made a blog post about this recently, like how
Oh,
to
really?
find. Yeah, I think I made a blog post and also like some. I think carousel either on LinkedIn or my Instagram, one of the two of them. But I just so basically that is one way where I make content, just sharing things around my experience. Because I realized that it's almost impossible to answer everyone that is requesting for a mentorship request, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So like instead of having one to one, it's a way for me to share my experience. Sometimes people ask me questions. I usually have like open DMs, and the only challenge there is I don't always get to them because sometimes it can be a lot. So I just check and then like, okay, I can answer this real quick. I come back and once in a while. But when I see ones that I feel like I can also repeat, I try to make them into content so that anyone that might have that same question can just benefit from
It's
that as
true.
well.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's like working while I'm not there, that kind of thing. That is what I would say is the kind of mentorship I do at the moment, just making sure that I'm trying to give it back to my younger self or people that will be in my position and or are curious about like my thoughts about things. Just in a way that I can help their career. So before for like, oh, reach out to me for mentorship. That's not something.
Almost impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still 24 hours we have in the same day, still on the grind. It's not easy, but that yeah, definitely. Just you can check out my social platforms. I've actually been making more content this year, so hopefully you find something, or anyone watching this will find something that resonates with them, or could be of use to them. And you can also ask questions as well in the comments. I usually reply with comments, or I make a video that addresses that specifically as well,
So
or a blog post.
great, great. Well done. Thank you. So last one, let's close the agentic AI thing. So what should engineers be thinking in this age? What should like their mindset be focused on in this age? What would be like if you had a room filled with 1,000 or 1 million engineers, what would you be telling them in this age?
I'll kind of tell them to focus on domain expertise in the sense that the tools will always change, or the problem you are solving might always continue to exist. And if the problems stop existing, they evolve into something else. And domain expertise will help you recognize those opportunities as well. So if you are building, for example, front end experiences, you're not just a front end engineer anymore. You're not just writing code. You are building an experience out of it. So even if the entire code is written by an AI agent for you, you are shipping what that experience will look like. You understand the shortcomings. You understand the limitations, the trade-offs, and that is your strength. You're making decisions off of that. And that applies to any other aspect of engineering, for example, as a start. So what you should do now is just instead of focusing on one language, one tool, one technology, so understanding why things happen, understanding the breadth of things, so that you can eventually deep dive into the depth of things as it starts to shape up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adewale. Thank you. Thank
My
you
pleasure.
for your
Thank you for having me.
time. Yeah, that's the end of today's episode of Tech Chat with the Fair, and it's a privilege to have Adewale who has shared a lot of his experiences, knowledge, and thoughts with us today. And I really appreciate you and thank you for coming. Okay, sure. See you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.